Welcome back to the Escape Collective Tour Daily Podcast, everybody. First stage of the Pyrenees is behind us. We just finally made it back to Pau. We're back in Pau. Johnny, where are we?
We're at a restaurant, not quite in the centre of Pau, a bit outside. We're like in the downtown, kind of sketchy bit. Anyway, we're at a restaurant that is half Mexican cuisine, half Indian cuisine. Which, if you've ever consulted a map or a globe, quite far away geographically, yet they share one menu, a double-backed menu. There's also
You just got shit on by a
very
squirrel.
tall trees above us.
Yeah.
And Ian spotted the squirrel, the offending squirrel, which unloaded itself on my head and lanyard. My new lanyard, which will be my lanyard, which you'll be able to see in my new headshot on the Escape Collective podcast cover art, where you'll discover that I have hair. Have had hair for 4 years, but just couldn't be bothered taking a picture.
It might take a bit to get the podcast cover art updated.
Oh no! I thought all my problems were solved.
A day or two at least.
Okay.
Also joining me today, Iain Treloar. How are you?
Hello, bicycle friends.
Are you proud of your countryman?
So proud. But he is from Western Australia, so slightly less proud than if he'd been from the Eastern Seaboard. Just to
How does that
start a civil war.
Is that a rivalry?
Really?
No, actually,
no?
Western Australians are nicer than the East Coasters. And just
Is that like Perth?
Perth.
Okay.
That is where he is from.
I don't know your country.
But also, Western Australia is very big.
Ah.
So it is probably about the size of one of your Europes.
And not much there. Is it? It's just Perth really over that side, is it?
I think that Western Australians might object to this this line of questioning. I'm sure that they feel that they've got towns, and I think I agree with most of them.
Okay. I just remember talking to photographer Zach, who many of you would have seen on TV today because he was one of the first to congratulate Hindley across the line. And when he's given reviews of Perth, it's a mixed review.
He likes it.
He likes it. He likes it.
He's very proud of it.
Yeah, but in a sort of...
Also,
yeah.
Shout out to Zach Williams, who you're talking about,
yeah.
and Chris Auld. We happen to know that we are their number one podcast for driving around and taking pictures of the Tour de France. So thank you to Zach and Chris for listening to us every day and spreading the gospel. We appreciate you.
To be fair, they have the time driving the tour route every day.
And they take beautiful pictures. If you haven't,
they do.
Yeah, go look them up. Zach Williams and Chris Auld. That's AULD. Go find them on Instagram or something like that. I think that's that where photos go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we talk about the bike race today? I feel like yesterday we went a bit sideways for a while, but
we'll get there again. Don't worry.
We will absolutely get there again. But I mean, frankly, that was because it was a sprint stage and there wasn't that much to talk about. Today, however, there is a lot to talk about. There are many things to talk about. We hinted at, a new yellow jersey and stage winner in Jai Hindley, fellow Australian for Ian here. An amazing ride. And I think we'll talk a little bit later about whether this pulls him more fully into like the favorites picture. Mauro Gianetti, who is the general manager over at UAE, he was certainly putting Jai Hindley into the favorites picture. The sort of I'm not talking like podium contender. I'm talking could win the bike race picture. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's sort of kick off with a what happened. Johnny, tell me what happened today.
So a big break went up the road. Tons of riders.
35, I think.
35. Well, that's a lot. That's a big
Yeah.
breakaway. Full of, a who's who, really, of strong riders. You had Wout van Aert, Mads Pedersen, a couple from UAE, a couple more Jumbo, Danny Martinez, the magician.
Yep.
Street magician,
sorry. And UAE, at the end of the stage, Tom Pidcock said that UAE should not have done that because then what happened then was that Wout van Aert basically, through attacking and just riding off the front and putting the impetus into this move, just drove the pace all day and led it so that UAE burnt themselves out. Pogačar was isolated and ultimately just couldn't deal with Jonas Vingegaard when he kicked on the Marie Blanc. But further up the road was Jai Hindley surviving from the breakaway, pedalling down that descent like a man possessed, a descent that he had reconned prior to the Tour. So even though he said that he was going to wait to the third week and wasn't going to go on the offensive, he did. He took his moment. He won the stage. He's in the yellow jersey. He finished half a minute ahead of the Jonas Vingegaard group. Jonas Vingegaard clawed back an insane amount of time both on the climb and the descent. Put Pogačar a minute further back. Big winners from the day: Jai Hindley, Jumbo-Visma, Jonas Vingegaard, Wout van Aert. Losers from the day: Tadej Pogačar.
Yep.
Is that succinct enough? Do we have a good idea?
No, that was very succinct. That was
Great.
and then I think we can talk a little bit about, well, what that means now. Let's start. I want to start with the Pogačar Vingegaard, and we will get to Jai Hindley, which we do want to spend a fair amount of time on. So, one of the things that was sort of bantered around the finish today was that, like you said, UAE made a mistake by letting this group go. I think there's one major point there, which is I don't think they had any choice. When it's 35 riders against like your 3 dudes,
It's tough.
I don't think you have any choice. Basically, once it got past like a couple seconds, that move is gone, right? Particularly when it's getting driven by people like Wout van Aert. So I don't know if there's much they could have done. They did have 2 riders in it. They had Marc Soler and Felix Großschartner, and those are 2 strong riders. I mean, Marc Soler in his day was considered sort of like a fringe GC guy, and on his day definitely could have stuck with that sort of front group that made it over the Mare Blanc. I think that was maybe the error that they made, was that they pulled those guys back, basically. And the reason they pulled them back is because they were scared of Jai Hindley. Reasonably so. He started not that far off the yellow jersey. He had just won a Giro. He's a genuine contender, and UAE had to keep him close. UAE sort of taking the onus to chase was maybe the other mistake. Could they have sort of shoveled some of that over to Jumbo-Visma and wasted some of their energy as opposed to UAE pulling? And that's kind of what Tom Pidcock was getting at, which was that UAE, because they took up the work, they really burned a lot of matches today.
Do you think this is UAE's sort of the way they started this tour, with Pogačar showing that he was feeling up for it and Adam Yates in yellow? Do you think that coming back to bite them? Do you think there's any regret there at all? Or
Well, so I talked with Mauro Gianetti, their general manager, and he didn't make it sound like there's any regret, and neither did Pogačar when he spoke after the race, right? Both of them were sort of like, I don't know what you do against just getting dropped at the top of a climb. Like that was essentially, it was mano a mano at that point. Now, you could definitely argue that, for example, if Soler had been able to get over that climb with the group that was in front of Vingegaard and Pogačar, he could have waited up. He could have helped chase through that whole big valley up to the finish line. Having a teammate up there would have been quite helpful. Yates did eventually get back up, but was pretty spent and frankly not all that useful. Could they have done something like that? Could they have better prepared for whatever Jumbo was pulling off? Possibly. But I think fundamentally today it wasn't really about tactics. Because even Wout van Aert, even though Wout van Aert was up the road and could have helped Vingegaard a little bit, he took like one decent pull and that was it. So I don't think today was tactics. I think today was Jonas Vingegaard is currently climbing faster than Tadej Pogačar, and I think that UAE has kind of resigned themselves to that.
so that's it. The tour's over. We might as well stop this. Go home.
No. What are the actual GC gaps right now?
We've got Hindley with 47 seconds down to Vingegaard. I haven't written about anything beyond that, so I don't actually know the rest.
I'll get the rest of it.
Thanks, Johnny.
In third place is Giulio Ciccone at 1 minute 3 seconds. Emmanuel Buchmann, fourth, 1 minute 11 seconds.
Who's also in the break today?
Also in the break,
Well,
Adam
both
Yates,
of them.
fifth, 1 minute 34. Tadej Pogačar, sixth, 1 minute 40, and he's also on the same time as Simon Yates, with Scalamosa, Carlos Rodriguez, and David Gaudu rounding out the top 10. So still pretty close.
Here's a question. Are all of the other teams that are not UAE and Jumbo realizing that this is how you win the Tour de France if you are them?
I hope so.
Like giant breakaways. Giant uncontrollable breakaways.
But I think that the issue is that Jumbo and UAE are just head and shoulders above the strength of any of the other teams. Talking to several Bora-Hansgrohe directors after the finish today, it was pretty clear that they don't actually... I mean, they think that Jai Hindley's great, but they don't believe in their
Good.
team in the same way that they would believe in a Jumbo-Visma to be able to carry it. So they're kind of seeing their route to a good result in the Tour de France as being one where they sort of surf on the wheels of the bigger teams rather than one where they're animating it themselves. I don't even necessarily think that they're expecting to hold on to yellow tomorrow. It seems like they're quite aware of their limitations. Yes, Johnny.
I was just going to say, if you look back on the previous Pogačar versus Vingegaard tour, or even further back to Pogačar and the Roglic ones, no other sort of GC guys really got any time in the yellow jersey. So I guess coming to this tour, Hindley and Bora-Hansgrohe at the end of this stage have been like, well, you won a stage, you're in the yellow jersey, and you also got 47 seconds, or you have 47 seconds now. You can't really hope for having had anything better than that. So
No.
you gotta just appreciate what you have.
And they were very surprised by how the day ended up, especially because they didn't really have a plan for Hindley to go in the break. That was just something that kind of happened. They thought that the first break of the day would get brought back, and the second break, which was one that they actually had the guys that they'd earmarked to be in the big break, would be, out there competing, and that wasn't going to be Hindley. He was just kind of like the first guy in the move that finally ended up sticking. So they were surprised. They described it as unexpected, but unexpectedly perfect. And Rolf Aldag, the team's head sports director, told me that to plan that like it played out would not be realistic. It was a very happy surprise, and they were pretty stoked with it. But I think there's some necessary realism to it as well.
But going back to your question, Caley, I think yes, and that would be great if all the teams that aren't the Jumbo and UAEs, if they all teamed up to create one sort of mega team who made mega breakaways, and you had like Ineos lending a hand to Bora to put the other two teams under pressure. That would be fun. That would be a full heel mode sort of. We're not gonna win the tour, but we're gonna stop you guys or make it hard for you.
Yeah.
But the problem is you can't get that sort of collaboration really, because it's already too.
It'll break
uneven.
down at some point.
Yeah.
It'll never happen. But it's fun to think about. And I guess, well, Ian, you just kind of answered my question, because my question was, did Bora identify, like, let's look for a giant move as something that would be helpful? And it sounds like no.
Well, it
That's not
sounds
the
like
case.
yes, but not Hindley.
Right.
So
Right.
Again, Aldag was saying that they were scratching their heads about Hindley being in the move at first, but then the group was going really well, and then he made the great point that at that point you don't hurt yourself any more than sitting in the bunch.
That's very true.
Positioning is easier
Yeah.
because you don't have to fight for it, he said. So the rhythm changes, then we profit from it, and in the final you just go for it. You see it's a chance, and we didn't throw it away. And I think that that's a pretty savvy tactical breakdown from him. He was quite dazed, I would say, like quite happy dazed.
I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah.
There are a lot of
Yeah.
directors that you would have talked to after today's stage, and they would have claimed
Credit,
that they planned
yeah.
the entire thing, and it would have been bullshit because most of them you can't plan most bike racing. You certainly can't plan bike racing like that.
And those the sports directors at Bora-Hansgrohe that I was talking to, they were both kind of honest, because Enrico Gasparotto was also saying the same thing, and that was before Aldag even showed up, and then Emmanuel Buchmann showed up, and he was like, "Yeah, we're surprised. Like this turned out well." So
They were looking at us
everyone
like,
was.
"Do we
It was
just do
like
that?" That's weird.
everyone was just like, "Wow, this is a really happy event," but no one really saw it coming. But yeah, obviously worked out pretty well for Hindley.
It's in contrast to Jumbo-Visma, who definitely, I don't think, foresaw Pogačar being dropped. They may have thought we could put him under pressure, test him out, but they definitely didn't see him losing a minute. And when Jonas Vingegaard was asked about it, he said that it was one of the race scenarios that they had thought, but wasn't necessarily one they expected. So you're claiming that it's one race scenario that you had planned out, but it's like, yeah, there's a race scenario for, if Mark Cavendish goes off the front and takes the King of the Mountains jersey.
Becomes a climber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things is that although Mauro Giannetti was, it sounded like he kind of had some respect for Hindley.
He did.
Which
He said he's a contender.
And Zeman described him as having the balls to do it. Which is straight down the line.
Maybe too personal an anecdote, but they are Dutch.
But in comparison to that, French media were just totally thrown for a spin. They
great.
had no idea who Jai Hindley was, it seemed.
They literally asked him to his face. They were like, sorry, we French, we don't really know about you, so who are you?
And they were also doing that to all the sports directors and to his colleague, to his teammates. They were like, so how does he fit in on the bus? What's he like? So Jai Hindley, I think, gave one of the quotes of the day where he started off his response to the L'Equipe, I think it was, in the press conference by saying, "I'm left-handed."
A fact that you only give up to the age of about 7, and then it just becomes irrelevant in your life.
And then he went on to talk about smashed avocado on toast and his preferred coffee order, a flat white.
Shock. Who'd have thought?
All the standard things, man, he said. Did he? I didn't see that. Did he give a shaka at that point?
No shakas.
No shaka.
But it is great when a sort of non-continental European rider gets in yellow wins a stage, because L'Equipe just absolutely scramble to find out anything about a man they've never paid an inch of attention to, even though he's won the Giro. But to L'Equipe, the Giro just doesn't exist, so why would they know? It's just
I love it.
It's great.
We're going to take a brief break because our dinner just showed up. Before we continue, I should let everybody know that you can currently join Escape Collective as a monthly subscriber and get access to all of our content. A monthly subscription will only set you back $6.99 US a month. And as a special for the Tour de France, you can get the first month for $1. Is Johnny worth $1?
Depends on the day. It'd be better if it was £1, because then you could say that it was available for 1 gold coin.
Oh.
£1 sterling for an Escape Collective membership? That's a bloody brilliant bargain.
Head on over to escapecollective.com/join, and you can hop on that pretty sweet deal, which is, well, it's limited. They didn't tell me when they're going to turn it off, so it could be tomorrow, could be in a month. Head on over to escapecollective.com/join. Thank you. We appreciate you. As I say many, many times, we're all funded by members and subscribers, and we really genuinely thank you for jumping on the bandwagon. All right. Let's keep talking about the Tour de France. Where did we left off with
we were mid Jai Hindley press conference.
So, anything else come out of that press conference of interest other than the French not knowing who he is?
He was quite emotional, to be honest, at having taken the yellow jersey. He was saying he's watched the Tour since he was a kid, since he was 6 years old. So probably just when he was figuring out he was left-handed.
Just starting to develop that taste for smashed avocado.
Yes. He spoke about his build-up and how he spent 2.5 months at altitude and how much fun he didn't have living out of a suitcase. He's a great press conference person, interviewee, because he kind of just talks like a real person, and he's a real person. Just has conversations.
I don't really understand. So this whole thing where they go to Tenerife or something and they sit on top of a mountain forever and ever and ever. Do they know that Colorado exists, for example? You could just come and literally live in the town that I live in and be higher than most points in Europe. And
it's a long way.
It is, but it's not that. It's a day of travel.
Expensive as well.
Yeah, more than sitting on top of a mountain where there's one hotel. That's got to be pretty expensive. Some riders have done it, like George Bennett.
Maybe you're in the wrong business here, Caley. Maybe.
George Bennett, I used to see George in Boulder all the time. He'd come and hang out in Netherlands, which is above Boulder, which is actually even higher. It's actually higher than the Galibier. It's 8,000 feet. Galibier is 7,300. What's that in meters? It's 2,000 something meters. Anyway, it's really high. So he used to go and he'd go sleep in Ned and train down in Boulder, and I just don't really like if you've got 2 months that you're going to sit somewhere. And granted, this probably wasn't all at one go.
Does it work with the weather? Like, is the climate decent at the right time?
It's lovely.
Okay.
In June, it's lovely.
Okay, well.
This episode brought to you by Visit Colorado.
I just don't get it. Like they all act like martyrs because they're going and sitting in a place that is literally lower than my house that I live in all year. Do they not know that these places exist where you can live in like a regular town and be higher? And
Maybe you should speak to Jai Hindley tomorrow and just say that you've got a spare room and he can move in if he wants.
He'd have to share it with my 2-year-old, so that might hinder sleep somewhat.
These are the sacrifices you have to make.
Yeah, but the
to grow
sacrifice is
into a
being away
contender.
from your family and
They
training
could come.
hard and then spending the rest of the time doing nothing. I don't know. I think it's a sacrifice.
Maybe the doing nothing part is actually, maybe that's why they want to go somewhere where there's nothing.
He said that he has been living like a monk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe there is a
An element of that.
spiritual component
Yeah.
to life on Tenerife.
I just find it kind of funny to like listen to them talk about these places like they're the edge of the earth. and
It's like Mordor.
yeah. And they are literally lower in elevation.
People go there on holiday. Yeah, but it's not as good a story, is it? It's like, I spent 2.5 months, didn't have to bother with the kids or the wife, just sort of played my PlayStation, rode my bike. It was great. Now I want a tour stage. The only other thing with Jai Hindley is that you often get in the press conference journalists asking dumb questions. I've done it many times. Everyone does it at times. But Jai Hindley has a very adept way of sort of diffusing it and shrugging it off, where he just sort of calls them mate in a... It's not a condescending way, but it's more like...
Wow, mate.
It's like, I
mate.
don't know about that, mate, but let's move on to the next one. It's really good. I don't know, it's better than my Australian accent.
I appreciate that because other riders do the opposite. For example, pre-2023 Tour de France Mark Cavendish, because this current vintage is not necessarily a good reflection of previous vintages, he had a habit of you would ask him a dumb question and he would look at you in the eyeballs and say, that's a dumb fucking question.
He nearly got Josh Robinson the other day before the stage, Josh Robinson of the Wall Street Journal, where Mark Cavendish had an interview with Tom Carey of the Telegraph, all buddy-buddy, playing nice, and then after Tom had finished his line of questioning, Josh Robinson of the Wall Street Journal jumped in with a very reasonable question, and then Mark Cavendish turned back to him and said, in what sense? Which is the last thing that I thought would come out of his mouth, but then Josh Robinson of the Wall Street Journal kept his cool, asked it in a different way, and then everyone carried on with their lives and Mark Cavendish answered the question. But it was like a tense, and Jai Hindley would never do that.
No. Which we appreciate about him. Because sometimes dumb questions come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you haven't read the script.
Sometimes you weren't ready to ask a question.
Yeah.
That's happened to me many times, where you just turn around and there's somebody there that you know you're supposed to be talking to, but you haven't actually had time to formulate a question in your brain. And so you just start asking it without having any idea where the end of the question is. What is falling on my head?
It's just a lot of there's like little green acorn type things,
Okay.
but every time one hits me, I then think I'm getting
Squirrel pooped.
more violence, yeah.
Just some nocturnal rustlings from above.
Well, anyway, that's enough of us complaining about our jobs.
And praising Jai Hindley.
I'm praising Jai Hindley.
I hope he stays. I hope he does well tomorrow. Tomorrow's a huge day with the Tourmalet and then Cauterets. How do you pronounce it?
Cauterets.
Which is easier, but there's very steep sections in it. The big thing will be the Tourmalet, I think.
Yeah. The Tourmalet has softened them up. I think that's roughly how it'll work. And then the Cauterets is steep enough in places that we can see some time gaps tomorrow. It's a hard stage. And then we're out of the Pyrenees. And then on Friday we're up to Bordeaux in the sprint stage. So Pyrenees are quick this year. The first week was hard primarily because of the combination of these two stages and Bilbao. But in terms of like previous years in the Pyrenees, we get in and out relatively quickly. I did. We had a listener question.
Yes, some of them
a listener request.
If you become a member of the Escape Collective, you can also ask questions or just make requests for us to find things out at the Tour de France.
Yep.
There was some debate or question over how to pronounce Lidl Trek, well, the Lidl part of Lidl Trek, and so we We dug around, and when journalists say that, it means they just texted someone a question. But if you say that, then it doesn't make it sound like you've actually tried.
We did reporting.
We did reporting, yes. And it turns out that while the German brand, they're German,
Yeah, think so. I don't know.
they pronounce it Lidl. And Lidl is
They
the correct
would.
pronunciation in German and many other countries. But in the UK, it's pronounced Lidl in the TV advertising campaigns and otherwise. So then Anglo speakers may prefer Lidl. UK ones definitely will. But it's open to interpretation. You can say Lidl Trek, you can say Lidl Trek. I may judge you if you use one of them, but I will forgive you.
So we don't have this grocery brand in America, so I'm coming at this from a neutral
Yeah.
point of
Actually,
view.
false. You do have it in America, just not in your bit of America, the beautiful and unimpeachable Colorado that
Maybe
we've been
that's
hearing
why
about
the
so
riders
much.
aren't coming to Boulder for their altitude camp.
Could be.
They're
Because-
all on
Where
the
are they?
eastern seaboard.
That's where I
Caley
grew up.
Fretz.
I don't remember any of them.
Well, they
they're
probably
probably
weren't
expanded
there
late,
then.
yeah. We're not talking about the old days.
I mean, I could talk about supermarkets that I had near me when I was growing up as a child. Jewel, Bilo, but I'm not going to.
We had Acme.
Okay, we like to derail a podcast. We can't just list things that used to exist when we were children. No, Lidl is
the European Union being a part of your life.
the Lidl supermarket is a cheap supermarket, but it's also contains European produce. What's happened is
What's happened is I've been shadowed by a squirrel.
use this napkin 'cause that's one I used to wipe off the shit that came
There's
on
a
me.
lot. There's a lot of it this time.
More squirrel poop.
Ah, lucky too.
Lucky
I was
to-
very lucky this time.
You got much more sympathy than I did. I just sort of got laughed at.
Yes, but I was finished.
Oh, it went on the
It
parade.
all turned out very well.
Yeah. Did you get cleaned up over there?
Yeah, just a
alright.
little bit of a ricochet of poo off my plate onto my arm.
It could have gone in your beer. That would
Oh
have
no,
been
it
worse.
is. Yes, no.
Oh, it is on your shirt.
I do have a bit on my t-shirt as well.
It kind of goes with the rest of the.
You should check your beer, which is right next to
I think it's fine. I can't see
I
any
think-
okay.
detritus in it.
no
no.
floaties.
And the
Um,
computer, which was also very close and open, is also fine, which is.
I kind of
very
don't want to
fortunate.
explain what the Little Trek supermarket is now because it's just going to fall so flat after that. So let's just move on.
I think that the moral of the story here is that both ways of saying it are correct.
Yeah, it's up to you.
And also that when we get yelled at about pronunciation on a regular basis, that is often true. Like, things are said slightly differently depending on where you live. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah, that is the beauty of language, is that you can say it however you want, and there is no language police to tell you not to. Well, there are, but
There are.
it's your choice whether to listen to them or not.
Yeah, I just don't. Alexander Kristoff?
Alexander Kristoff.
That is,
Kristoff
I think
Corner.
this is our last. No.
What do you want before
No,
that?
no,
Oh,
no.
do you want the most important
I
competition?
want the most important competition in all of the Tour de
Okay.
France. So we were told about this competition by some friends.
Yes.
I'd
I'd never heard of it before.
I'd never heard of it, and frankly, I love the idea because they were the way they were explaining it. It is the sand jersey.
The sand jersey.
Yeah, the sand jersey. Now, does anyone speak French?
Mayo.
Mayo jersey.
Mayo jersey.
Sand.
Sable.
I think sable.
Mayo sable.
Sable. Sable.
Well, Lidl. No, there's definitely a way to pronounce sable. Sable.
So there we go. The Mayo sable. Sable. We should find out.
Okay.
We'll ask Rupert. Rupert was the one that told me about it. So we heard about this jersey. Now this jersey is reverse Price is Right. The Mayo Sable classification is whatever rider is the closest to 1 hour. I believe this is what was told to me, is that the sand is indicative of a
Hourglass.
hourglass. I'm just waving my hand around there, making people
Like you're
guess
trying
what
to
I'm talking
open
about.
an imaginary door that doesn't exist.
Yeah, an hourglass, an hour. So the jersey is awarded to the rider that is the closest to 1 hour, but cannot be under. So it is reverse Price is Right rules. 59.59, you do not qualify. 1 hour, 1 second. That's what you're going for. So we are now far enough into the race. Earlier on, there's nobody at an hour, so nobody qualifies. We're now far enough into the race that we have a leader in this competition. Johnny, who do we got?
So, seeing as we're starting this for the first time in terms of talking about it, I think I'm going to start a little competition between the two of you, where I'm going to give you clues as to who it is,
Right.
and then you each get a guess after each clue, and then I'll reveal another clue.
All right.
Okay.
This is a fun game.
First clue, he's Dutch.
Ramon Sinkeldam.
Incorrect. He rides for Team DSM Firmenich.
I know 5 people on that team. 4 of them are Australian and 1 of them is French. So
Is that your final answer?
It's not Kevin, even though Kevin could be Belgian.
Okay, so we've named 6 people on DSM.
So you need literally the 2. One of the 2.
I'm just not that much
Okay,
of a
next
roster
clue.
head.
Next clue. Disqualified from an under 23 or junior road race at the Worlds.
Oh, what's his name? Oh. Shit. I wrote the story about it. My brain is not working. We're too far into the tour.
Next. Okay, now I'm going to give the letter of his first name. N.
Niels Eekhoff. Eekhoff.
There we go.
There we go.
I'd love to know how many people were just screaming.
Well, people at
At their
home
earbuds
should
about that.
try not to look that far down, and then they can play when they listen to the podcast
And get it way quicker than us because you're way less.
Yeah, and then you
tired
you
way
can just
smarter
tweet
as
at
well.
Ian and Caley
about how wrong we are.
about how wrong or how
how undeserving we are of being at this bike race.
What I'm really hoping is it's some rider who I don't have 3 facts about, including their team, nationality, and something happened in a race, and then we'll just have to guess and be here for hours.
I mean, there are riders in this race who I didn't know existed before I got here. To be perfectly honest, like there's like 20 of them.
Jai Hindley.
Yeah, there's always like at least a dozen or so where you're like,
they're like, they're either there could be neo pros or relatively new, and I just haven't had a chance to like interact with them yet, or they haven't done anything in a bike race. They've just been a domestique, and I haven't looked them up.
Yeah.
And there's always some, so we could run into that issue. Although, the deeper we get into the race, the bigger the names will be.
that's
right?
true.
Because
now it's in the 140s of the GC.
Right. Whereas we went and looked this up. In previous years, the Miles
Big
Sabla
names.
has been awarded to some pretty big names, like Bocamolamo
It's usually
or
in the
like
teens
Nairo
or
Quintana,
20s that win it.
That kind of person. Yeah.
So I think that's a fun segment. We don't really do segments, but I think
No.
that's a fun.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And then we'll keep track,
Yeah. So
and the winner gets to go to the Olympics next year.
then I can't compete. We've already got plans to decide that in the off season.
The winner gets to go to Saitama.
Then again, I can't compete.
What do Ian and I both want to do?
Just want to hang out with my friends and have a nice time.
Without competition. We made this mistake last year.
All right, we'll figure out what the competition is going to be for. Congratulations to me for winning the first night. And now I want to hear about Alexander Kristoff.
Yeah, so this is, having gone from no segments, we have now got 2 segments back to back.
Kristoff Corner.
Kristoff Corner. I had a dynamite interview with Alexander Kristoff this morning, which just unfolded so many different funny angles of inquiry.
I've never seen you so buoyant. You were skipping back to
I
me
had a
from
wonderful
the
morning
start.
with Team Uno X. Okay, so Kristoff Corner today. Happy birthday, Alexander Kristoff. Point number 1.
Happy birthday.
36.
I wished him a happy birthday, and he agreed that he would accept my happy birthday. One of the things, as the Escape Collective chief Kristoff correspondent, is that I have an awareness of the way that Norwegian television celebrates his birthday, which is they give him a cake on air most years. This year there was no cake for Kristoff.
What?
So I asked him, does that indicate anything? Does he feel sad about that? And he said, they are scared that I will smash it in their face because I did it this time. And I said, what? There was a cake smash? And he started laughing and he said, yeah, because they always write shit about me, so then I get the cake. And then he trailed off ominously. And then I said, but will there be cake today? And then he agreed, there will be cake. There will be cake from the nutritionist. So I
That sounds delicious.
So I went over to TV2, the cake bringers of the past, and I said, why no cake for Christoph today? And they accepted this question with more grace than it deserved. And they said, we're a bit overwhelmed by all the Norwegians this year. So maybe we have a different approach to everything now. Previously, he was the only Norwegian they cared about, and now they've got too many.
Yeah, their job's actually got by magnitudes harder.
Way harder.
But they also agreed that he deserves a cake today. He smashed a cake in their their pundit Doug Otto Lauritsen's face, the same face which is in cars, on the side of their cars that they drive around.
Sounds like he deserved it.
And then we had a little bit of a back and forth about what type of cake Alexander Kristoff wanted, and they knew that he wanted an Oreo cake, and I told them that was disappointing.
Yeah,
and
that perturbs me.
it really upset me because the Oreo is such a bad biscuit. And then they responded, he will have an Oreo cake, so that says a lot, doesn't it? He's that kind of guy. So that is Christoph Corner for today.
I love Christoph Corner. And you've got plenty more planned, which I think people will struggle to believe, and they are as deep.
All right, it's time for us to button it up a little bit and get over to José Been. On today's José Been segment, we're going to look at how the Tourmalet first featured in the Tour de France in 1910. There's a great backstory here. I can't wait.
Hello and welcome to the High Pyrenees on day 6. These mountains are here because of plate tectonics. Yay, science! At first, the Iberian plate moved away from the rest of Europe towards North America. Sad trombone. This even opened up an ocean where we now have the Pyrenees. When Iberia came back to the Eurasian plate, the ocean closed and the two plates did boom! Around 65 million years ago. A long mountain chain formed at the boundary, and that is now the Pyrenees. This dance of plates, the breaking up, the opening up of an ocean and coming back together in a continental collision along the same plate boundary, is called the Wilson cycle. It's not a special brand of bicycle. The Wilson cycle is a concept of cyclical plate tectonics named after the pioneering Canadian geophysicist and geologist John Tuso Wilson. Well, let's get back to the present. Well, present 113 years ago, because it was in 1910 that the Col d'Aspin and the Col du Tourmalet first featured in the Tour. The assistant to Tour de France race director Henri Desgranges travelled to the Pyrenees in January of that year to see if the roads were rideable. The locals laughed at this Alphonse Stennes when he rented a car and drove up the Col du Tourmalet. He got stuck in the snow, continued on foot in 4 meters high snow walls, and had to be rescued off the mountain in the middle of the night. Yet he sent a telegram to Desgranges in Paris that read, "Cross Tourmalet, very good road, perfectly passable, signed Stennis." So, in the summer of 1910, the Tour de France went to the Pyrenees and up the Col d'Aspin, Périssourde, Tourmalet, Souleur, Col des Tortes, and the Aubisque in one day. Today's riders just have it easy, I tell you. After a stage of 326 kilometers and just over 14 hours of racing, Octave Lapisse beat Italian rider Pierino Albini in a direct sprint. Lapisse took 10 minutes on François Faber, his direct rival for the general classification. A few days after his heroic win in the Pyrenees, but still in second place in the overall classification, Lapisse managed to take another 11 minutes back on Faber in a 391-kilometer stage to Brest. Lapisse took over the yellow jersey, which he then brought to Paris that year. It would be the only Tour de France Lapisse would win. In the First World War, he volunteered for the French army and joined the Air Force. At the very early beginning of warplanes, they were used for reconnaissance. But one Roland Garros, yes, that one, figured out how to mount a machine gun on a plane without shooting your own propellers to bits. After years of training, Lapisse wanted to go to the front line. He knew the dangers and had already drafted his last will and testament for his wife and young daughter Yvonne. It was on the 14th of July 1917, Bastille Day, that his plane was shot down by 4 German planes. He was rushed to hospital but succumbed to his injuries a few days later, just 29 years old. François Faber also died in the First World War. He was part of the French Foreign Legion and was shot in 1915 while trying to bring a wounded comrade to safety.
Thank you, José Been. We're going to go over to the Giro. Abby Mickey's got an update from a day that involved, at least Longo Borghini not starting, and I think it was another Annemiek van Vleuten win. Let's hear from Abby.
We are over halfway through this thing, and I can't remember what stage it is. Can you remember which stage it is?
No, it's just like being a bike rider at the race too.
You know, it doesn't help that the tour is going on at the same time and they're one stage behind. So it like throws off your brain, you know?
Yeah, and there's a lot more about the Tour de France on everyone's Twitter feed, unfortunately. So
that's very true. People ask me actually why these episodes are on the Wheel Talk podcast alone, because usually we have all of the episodes on the Escape feed for every Escape Collective podcast. But I put these solo on the Wheel Talk feed because with the Tour Daily podcasts, I was afraid they would get eclipsed by Tour Mania. And so that's why they're on their own. I wanted to give them their own space to breathe. So if anyone was wondering, that is why. Tell your friends. For us, we're focused on the Giro, and today's stage 6 was a really awesome stage. There was a ton of action. It was not a breakaway day, but it was an Annemiek van Vleuten day. She won solo by 20 seconds over Lorena Wiebes. What a legend. And Liana Lippert took third. There was a pretty big group of chasers behind Van Vleuten, including Soraya Paladin, Sylvia Persico, Niamh Fisher-Black, Mavi Garcia, and San Esteban. Fenn Van Empel led in another group of favorites. So, yeah, pretty crazy day. Another GC day, kind of in that Van Vleuten gained more time on the general classification. And also, unfortunately, I think that the runner-up spot in the GC is cursed. Lidl Trek released a statement last night after the stage that Elisa Longo Borghini had gone to the hospital and undergone a bunch of x-rays and checkups on her head and the rest of her body. The side that she hit was in a good bit of pain, so she got that checked out. She has no fractures, no broken bones or anything, and the head scans came back clear, so she shouldn't have any concussion. They're still they said they were monitoring her overnight for signs of a concussion and that they would make the call in the morning. And when it came morning, she still has no signs of a concussion, but because the pain that she was in from the side that she hit, they decided it was the best call for her not to race. So Elisa Longo Borghini, stage 4 winner, did not start the stage on stage 6. And yeah, unfortunately, Antonia Niedermayer crashed as well today on stage 6 pretty hard and was forced to abandon pretty much immediately.
yeah, like Johan Cruyff said once, the best form of defense is attack. So yeah, if you've got the jersey, then the best way to keep it is just to go up the road again on your own. So it's pretty impressive that she can do that. But I'm probably more impressed by Lorena, to be honest. She could just do all sorts of terrain. I would say, like, already, I reckon she's going to be world champion in a month's time. I just can't
I think she would be a worthy world champion, though.
I mean, she would. She's just class. You know, like sometimes you can look at the profile if you're a sprinter and just look at a profile and be like, oh, can't do anything in this race. But I just don't think she looks at any of those stages like that. She's just like, give it to me.
Yeah, I mean, today was like a pretty hard day with 3 climbs and a climb to the finish. And that climb to the finish there were, I think, 16% slopes in it. But that's just like a classics climb. which is something that she's good at. So, but when she came around the corner towards the finish, it was like a bat out of hell.
Like she's showing that you can have fun out there and also just rip races.
It's important to have fun. I think a lot of people like lose touch of, and Van Vleuten is a rider who I think like has a lot of fun racing her bike. Her interview after the race was hilarious. She was asked if she wanted to dedicate this victory to anyone, which is a question that every winner has been asked at the finish of this race, and it just cracks me up.
Oh.
But the interviewer asked her if she wanted to dedicate the win to anyone, and Annemiek said no.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm the one that worked hard.
I think tomorrow looks quite hard. There's 4 climbs, 2 category 3s and 2 category 2s. It goes 3-2-2-3, with the first climb being the longest, but also quite gradual. And then the final 2 climbs, the 2 and the 3, are basically just one climb. The 2 climbs up 6.5 kilometers long, averages 6%, but there are some real steep parts in there. And then it tops out with 9 kilometers to go, but the 9 kilometers to the finish is basically like a plateau on top of the climb, and then it kicks again to the finish. So it's basically like one kind of long climb, with the final category 3 is 2.6 kilometers long and averages 7.6%. There's some real steep parts in that one as well. So I think tomorrow, I mean, this is a weird age of bike racing we're in, where the breakaways, I feel like it's harder for them to try. But I think I could see an SD Works victory tomorrow. If it's not Niamh, then like Blanca Voss is riding super well. She's not a bad climber. If she could get up the road, like get ahead of the climbs, she could win the stage.
Yeah, I reckon it's going to be a breakaway day. But you never know what Van Vleuten wants to do. So
if you say it every day, then it'll be true at least once.
I just want the breakaway to just win. I just think it's so good when it's almost kind of like 2 races in one. There's a breakaway of a chance of the riders that can't win an out-and-out mountain stage, but can have a little go, and just, I like it when people just dare to have a go and succeed.
A challenging finish. So it'll be an exciting one to watch. If you want more information on the Giro Donne, or to hear some rider diaries from riders on the ground at the Giro, head on over to the Wheel Talk podcast feed for a chat with me, Hannah Barnes, and some audio diaries from Veronica Urs herself, Nina Kessler of the Jayco Alula team, Niamh Fisher-Black of SD Works, Sarah Roy from Canyon SRAM, and Loretta Hansen of Lidl Trek. Thanks so much.
All right. It is time for us to wrap up for today. It's been a bit of a long one, but it was a great stage. As has become custom here on the podcast, we have friends that showed up. Introduce yourselves.
Hi there, my name's Jason. I'm a proud Escape Collective member and happy to be sitting with the guys for dinner tonight.
And to my right, we've got
Edward, friend of Jason. We lived in Australia together, and I'm now back in Europe and cycling out here.
Was the podcast better or worse live?
I think it was better, mainly because I could see Ian's facial expressions.
We should really do a video version at some point.
We're now
Just of my face?
Yeah. Just this, us talking, but with a close-up of your face the entire time. Yeah.
We're now 1 for 1 for podcast better in person or worse in person.
That's true.
So
it's all even.
Yeah.
It's all even. Well, if you are in France or, anywhere else where we make a podcast, it's pretty much just here. If you're at the Tour de France and you want to come hang out and have a beer and make a podcast with us, and by that I mean mostly sit over here while we make a podcast, let us know. You can hit us up on the Discord. If you're a member, you can do that. You can just direct message us. Don't direct message me. Tag me in something.
Yeah.
I have 46 direct messages that I haven't responded to.
Yeah, tags.
Tag us in a thing, and we will be in touch and let you know where we are, and we would love to hang out and give you a high five and say thank you.
You may have to be flexible, as our timings are all over the wazoo at all times.
Yes. We will meet you for dinner sometime between 7:30 and 11:30 p.m. All right. With that, it's time for us to wrap up. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will be back tomorrow from the final stage of the Pyrenees. It's been a great tour so far. It's going to get even better. Bye-bye.